So we'll start with session one, formal part of session one, which is about embracing luck. And the aim of this next part really is to think about, first of all, exploring, well, what do we mean by luck? Because I suspect luck can mean different things to different people. So we recognise that, and that's something you might want to write about in your luck journal, in terms of what it means to you. But also we're going to give you a sense of what the kinds of things we think we're talking about here, and the kinds of events we are going to explore, whether or not psychology can help us with those events. So that's what we're going to explore, what luck is, and then lead from that into the role that luck plays in our life, and ask us to start reflecting upon how it has played an important part, or otherwise, and then over the next couple of weeks, and onwards, but particularly the next couple of weeks, to attend to events that seem to be influenced at least in part by luck. So that's what we're going to aim to do. So what is luck? One of the first places to look with this is when you're exploring luck, is the dictionary. And when I first went to the dictionary to think, well, let's see what the dictionary kind of defines luck to be, I was thinking it wouldn't be very helpful. And actually, the bit I'm going to extract and show you, I think is actually quite a helpful part in terms of what we're looking at for this project. So, in dictionary, this is part of a longer definition. I'll read it out for you. It can apply to success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions. And also it refers to chance considered as a force that causes good or bad things to happen. Now we could explore in detail what we mean by chance, because that's a term in there. But again, if you go to the dictionary there, loads more of definitions, and we don't want to get too caught up into some of the philosophical discussions here. But the first part is something I think we should focus on, and there's something about that particularly is important to me in this context. It says success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions. Now what I like about that, it has the word apparently in there. So already we're recognising that there may be things that happen to us that we might describe as being down to luck, but maybe they're not always things which we have no role in whatsoever. So we want you to start to entertain that possibility. There is perhaps sometimes things we can do to influence events that seem to be down to just chance. So that's a key part of it. So that's kind of where we're starting from. Now traditionally then, when psychologists have studied luck in the past, and even still, it's still the case to some extent, they make assumptions about luck. So when somebody makes an attribution to luck and says this is down to luck, they will tend to assume they are saying luck is something which is external, as in external to them, it's something outside of themselves. It's something which is unstable, which means it's not stable over time. So it may well be that today something's happened that you think is down to luck, but that means tomorrow it could go very differently. It's a luck thing. So if you took part in an exam and today you happen to get questions that you feel you could answer, but you attributed that down to luck, then the next time it may well be you could be unlucky because it's something that's unstable. So an attribution to luck traditionally is treated as unstable. And then linked to that, it's something which is uncontrollable. If it's external and unstable, there's not a lot you can do to control it. That's the way psychologists have traditionally treated luck. Okay? However, and this is something that I was discovering as part of my own PhD research, is that's not how people always treat luck. For some people, they may regard it in that way. Some people think it's something they can do something about. So, people often perceive luck to be quite different. And using those three examples again, they might perceive luck to be something which is internal. So it's not something that's out there. There's something about me, something internal to me, something about me that makes me to be either lucky or unlucky. Therefore, if it's something about me, perhaps there's some degree of stability about it. If I'm lucky today, I may continue to be lucky into the future. And there may be some things I can do to influence that luck. So to some degree, it is controllable. And it's nicely captured in this phrase then, I'm a lucky person. And there are quite a lot of people who might happily say, well, I generally feel as though I'm a lucky person. Things tend to work out in my favour. And that's where, again, that book, The Luck Factor, talks about what characterises those people who describe themselves to be a lucky person. And what we're trying to do here is see if we can draw upon that. Are there certain key aspects that maybe we can draw upon to influence the experiences we describe as luck? Okay, so that's that in terms of the kinds of events we're looking at. Now, there's also another way. There's actually several ways in which people often use the term luck, but another important way is something I'm going to illustrate in a second. So first of all, and you may have seen this before if you've listened to me give one of these talks before, but first I want you to make your mind go blank. That was quick. Terrible joke, I know. But now I want you to imagine that you're waiting in a bank when an armed robber enters and fires a shot, and the bullet hits you in the arm. This is a scenario that I generated for my PhD research, and it kind of illustrates a point, I think, quite nicely. So imagine you're waiting in a bank, an armed robber has entered and fired a shot, and the bullet hits you in the arm. Would you describe that as being lucky or unlucky? So that's the kind of question just to reflect on personally, first of all, is what you think that would be. I think I would like to get a bit of a show of hands, though we may have a bias sample, I don't know, but would you describe that as being unlucky? Hands up. So one hand, not so sure maybe, so at least one hand. There's usually more than that, so maybe we have got a bias sample. And some people describe it as being lucky. So more hands there. So we will explore that. In terms of, don't feel as though that's unusual because a lot of people would describe that as being unlucky. Normally when I would show that kind of a sample, you get a fair split in the room. And the reason why I like that, it shows us that not everybody agrees. It's not as if there's something about this event or these kinds of events which is correctly attributed to being lucky or unlucky. It's how you perceive it. But what you tend to find is that people who would describe it as being unlucky, and if you're happy me to ask you, can you explain why you might describe that as being unlucky?
Yes, first we could sign in the bank and now that's good luck as far as I can see. I think the idea is that you're saying that I'm lucky that I'm not dead, but I would assume that the robber went in, he wasn't intending to hit anybody, so I say I'm unlucky to actually hit me, because I assume the robber would go and fire a shot just to kind of scare people, as opposed to hit anybody. The fact that it hit me.
Okay, so the fact that the bullet has hit you at all, and the fact you're in that bank in the first place, maybe an armed robber has come in, they're enough to think, well, the odds are, what are the chances of that happening? And it happened to happen to me, and therefore it's unlucky. Makes a lot of sense. Other folks then describe it as being lucky, which on the face of it you might think, well, that's unusual because it doesn't sound very lucky. You've been shot in the arm. But anybody happy to suggest, and I think you've touched upon it there already, why you might describe it as being lucky? Yes?
I don't think how many people are in the bank. So there's loads of people in the bank and you get shot, and it's unlucky. But if you're... No. Yes. That's the word.
Right. So if there was a lot of people there and you were happy to be the person to be shot.
Yeah,
Okay.
If you're like the only person who got shot in the arm, that's all right.
So
I think if it hit you in the arm, you would think, oh, thank goodness, that could have killed me.
okay.
That could have hit me in the head or the heart or something.
Okay. So you're saying what could have happened, it's hit me in the arm, but it could have easily maybe hit me in the heart or in the head. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
That's really what we're trying to illustrate with this, both in terms of perceiving it lucky and unlucky. In this context, a big important part of it is you compare what actually has happened to what might have happened. So that's the underlying principle here. It's something we'll explore in more detail down the line. It's what psychologists call counterfactual thinking. So you've got a fancy term to describe it, which is comparing what does happen to what might have happened. And you either compare what has happened to something which is far worse, such as being shot in the head, therefore perceiving it as being actually quite lucky. And sometimes people who are involved in car crashes but survive them, they were lucky to escape with their lives or lucky to escape with only a broken leg. So it may be something which in and of itself is quite negative, but comparing what might have happened, they can often perceive it to be quite worse. Similarly, you might perceive it to be unlucky because you can imagine not being in the bank in the first place or the shot hitting somebody else. And on that ground, you might perceive it to be unlucky. So there's no correct answer there. It's just recognising how you perceive these events. That's another important part in terms of how we attribute things to luck. So that's giving a sense of where we are in terms of the kinds of events. And